Hey, it's Mr. Keys, and for this part of the series, we're going to explore various techniques that allow us to play more than one note for our bass lines. Today, we're going to talk about using octaves with bass lines. An octave is one out of the many types of intervals we have in music. When we move up an octave from the root note of the chord, it means that we're moving 8 notes away from it. When we count intervals, the starting note is always part of the count. For example, if we have a C as a bass note, and we want to move it up an octave, we count C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's 8 letter names. There's a bit more theory involved than simply counting white notes on the piano, but the gist of it is, whatever your root note is, an octave above or below will be the same letter name. So an octave above F is going to be F. An octave above A is A. And an octave above B flat is B flat. We can do a couple of things with octaves. We can alternate between a bass note and its octave above or below, or we can play a bass line in octaves, like this, to thicken it up a bit. I would only do this when the bass instrument that I'm using sounds a little bit weak when we just use a single note. When you're using an octave above or below, you have to use your ears. If it starts to sound distorted, don't go so low. Let's take a look at the following progression. So we're in 4/4, and the progression is C, so 1 bar for C, E minor, 1 bar, A minor, and F major as our last bar. So the root note for C major is C, the root note for E minor is E, the root note for A minor is A, and the root note for F major is F. But you already knew that. So let's listen to an example. So that's an example where we played the octaves just on the beat. Let's take another look at an example where we use more syncopated 8th note rhythm. All right, so that was definitely more syncopated. When we're playing bass lines, we should usually start on beat 1, but I'm going to show you an example where that's not necessarily true. So there's an example where we didn't start on beat 1, but it still sounds pretty interesting. Let's try one more rhythmic example where we use 16th notes. Okay, so that example is really syncopated. So using 16th notes gives us even more freedom than, say, 8th notes or chord notes, etc. Okay, so I changed the instrument to strings, and this time we're going to focus on playing in octaves. So that means I'm going to be playing 2 bass notes at the same time, just to give it some added strength. I'm going to mute this track and duplicate it just to show you what it sounds like without the doubled notes. So definitely not as strong. I'll just play the doubled one more time. Okay, so octaves are a really cool technique that we can add to our bass lines. One thing to note is that alternating between a note and its octave above or below really, really fast is probably not advisable. Let me show you an example. Okay, that sounds pretty horrible. So there are limits to how we can use octaves, but as long as it sounds good, isn't that the only thing that matters?